Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching YourTown television. My guest today, Teresa Del Piero, actor and community arts advocate.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
So we just got done, we were doing, Harriet Lynn produced a play called Three Trees about Alberto Giacometti, and you played Annette Giacometti's wife.
The long-suffering wife.
The long-suffering
Alberto
wife.
Giacometti.
And then the master of his estate once he was
Absolutely
gone. So this was really fun, and it was Alvin Ang wrote the play. It was a new play, and it just reminded me how much vitality there is in theater, and how good local theater can be.
Absolutely, and I think this piece was also a product of the pandemic and COVID. You saw a lot more play readings being done to limit the number of rehearsals, the number of contact with actors. A lot of play readings on Zoom. I was thrilled to do this in person.
Yeah.
Because the audience really contributes to the process.
It's the whole energy.
Absolutely.
So it's just really fun and made me, now I want to know theater people and I want to play with you guys. So how did you find your way to theater?
Well, I was an art student from early grade school. I studied at the Carnegie Museum. In fact, my art teacher at the Carnegie Museum was Andy Warhol's art teacher,
So you're in
Mr.
Pittsburgh.
Fitzpatrick.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. I was on a serious art track. And I could not get into a required health class sophomore year of high school, so I decided to take acting. And I was transformed. The teacher was dynamic. It was in the early 70s, so it was a lot of movement and improvisation. And I spent the rest of the 3 years of high school doing theater. And I majored in theater. I went to Boston University and got a BFA in acting, although I was wanting to be a theater educator. Because my experience was so fantastic with how it transformed so many people, I wanted to be a theater educator. And right before I was going to Boston University, they said, we're eliminating the theater education major. You have to choose between acting or directing. And so I chose acting and studied there for 4 years and just never looked back. I'm so happy that I made that choice. And I did do a lot of theater education, despite the fact that my degree was not in that. I did a lot of theater education projects when I was in college, and always found a job teaching theater every place I moved.
How did you end up in Carmel by the Sea?
Well, my husband is a native Californian, and so we, through his training, towards the end of his training, we discovered that there was an opening here on the Monterey Peninsula. He's a physician.
Yes.
And we jumped at the chance because his family was here, and we wanted to be here if we could. And so that was it. We moved to the Monterey Peninsula in 1985.
So what's interesting to me is that we can live in a small community but have excellence and high standards.
Yep.
And you've been involved in a number of organizations here. You've been involved in the Film Commission, the Theater Alliance, the Theater Trust, Monterey Peninsula Theater Trust. Let's talk about those organizations and what they did.
Well, the Monterey County Film Commission is still in existence. I was one of the founding members of that board. And it was really started by the state of California. They encouraged local communities to create film commissions to bring film work to California. California was losing a lot of film production to other states, and it was a plan to bring the filming locally. Monterey had always been a fantastic location for filming and has a long history of filming. maybe not the whole movie, but parts of movies.
Right, because it's so beautiful.
Right. So it was a natural for me. I loved it. We did screenwriting competitions. We did Oscar night parties. We were mainly marketing Monterey County to the film industry. The Theater Alliance is an organization of local theaters and theater goers. So theater makers, theater goers that can become members of this organization. And it's evolved quite a bit during the pandemic because there wasn't much live theater happening.
Right.
So they've really created a Zoom theater location where they're encouraging anyone who has a project that wants to bring it to them that's done on Zoom would be done. Very interesting. I'm still hearing from older theater goers that they still don't feel comfortable going inside a theater.
Interesting.
And I think my point to them is give it a try. Obviously, you've got outdoor venues like the Forest Theater where you aren't inside of a small location, but the theater makers, actors like myself, all the technical people, the producers, directors, they are just desperate to get back on stage.
It seems like there's some new companies. It seems like there's some younger people involved.
Yes, there are some new companies. There are
some daring stuff going on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are people who are feeling like they want to make their own way, which is, I think, what happened with the Giacometti play.
Right.
It really came out of a desire to make something, to combine the art that you provided, the project, with the acting.
I saw the Testament of Mary, which I thought was terrific. So,
and the Carl Cherry is a lovely venue.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of plays there. It's a small venue, only 50 seats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing for us locally, for those people who are advocating for theater, is you want to encourage young people to start going to theater.
Right.
Because a lot of our theater goers are older and are the ones who are less inclined to go out and see theater and sit in a small 50-seat theater. And young people can look at anything they want on their phone anytime they want.
Yeah.
And it's a commitment to go to the theater. You're committing to sit in a theater for a couple of hours.
And I don't think people, well, I know for myself, until you start going to theater, until you start seeing it, you forget how dynamic it is,
Yes.
how words matter, and the movie business, as it's gotten to be, is such a franchise, and it's the same graphics package, and it's got to play in, you know, it's a superhero, and it's got to play in China, and so many. So the films that I grew up on, that's not every, I don't want a blanket statement, but they don't seem to have the same nourishment that so you have to look somewhere else. And theater is affordable to do, so it's very exciting. Let's talk about the film festival here, because you were involved with that for a long time.
Carmel Art and Film Festival. It was a wonderful marriage of our local location. A lot of the local artists were used in the graphic design for the posters every year. Art galleries hosted events. And it was amazing how many young filmmakers who came here for the festival, had never been to the Monterey Peninsula, said, oh my goodness. And it was always in October, which is one of our beautiful months.
We had the party on the beach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so part of it was encouraging these young filmmakers to come back here and make films.
Yes.
And I think they were successful in that sense. They really like to highlight local filmmakers as well. So if you were a local filmmaker, they would kind of highlight your film. But unfortunately, it was a lot of work, hard to sustain. Yeah. And I know we've got a lot of little film festivals here and there. Of course, there was a Monterey Film Festival in the late 80s.
Right.
Only lasted, I think, 3 years. But it is a lot of work.
But this was really quite glamorous. But,
it was.
But things,
a lot of fun.
Things come and they go, and they ebb and they flow here.
Yeah.
Is my experience.
And it's not just the fun stuff. It's all the work behind it.
The work.
It's the screening of all the movies. And many times I would watch maybe 3 or 4 movies. If they were short movies, I might do it in one night. But, over a weekend, I might watch 3 or 4 movies.
Yeah.
Because we were picking the movies that were going to be shown at the festival. So a lot of work.
Let's talk about The Arts Matter.
I was approached to write an article, and this is a magazine that gets mailed to homes in Carmel, Pebble Beach, now in Monterey. I think it even gets mailed out into Carmel Valley and Carmel Highlands. So it's not the kind of throwaway magazine that's stacked up in Carmel when you walk around. You get it at your home. And I have a number of people who tell me that they read my article. Because during COVID there hasn't been as much theater, I haven't written it every month. But I do give people a little insight into what they could do that month, what plays they could go see, a little background about the play. And I try to intersperse a little bit of art as well. The Carl Cherry is a great venue to talk about because there's an art gallery, and you walk through the art gallery to go into the theater. So it's a natural to talk. When we were trying to come up with a title, I finally thought The Arts Matter has a couple of different meanings. Right. And, the strongest one is the arts matter. Yes. And you need to support the arts. And so I'm always highlighting fundraising events and I'm, especially during COVID, I've been telling people, please support your local theaters.
As an actor, let's talk about acting a bit. How do you approach a role?
It's interesting, this most recent role of Annette Giacometti, you start by doing a little research on the person, especially if it's a real life character. You can find photos of that person. Now, if I'm playing a character that is written, that is not based on any historical figure, I maybe look at the era. What is the era that this play is being set in? So I start researching what women might have looked like, what the setting might have looked like. And if you see my scripts, the back of my script always has pages and pages of things that I've printed off the internet or made copies of from books that start to give me a sense of what this person's going to look like, how they're going to live.
You really transformed yourself.
Well,
so I was kind of, it was very interesting.
I'm a big fan of, if I know my character's going to wear an apron, as in many of the characters I've played over the years at MPC, which are the Jewish mother characters. If my character's going to wear an apron, I'm going to wear an apron at every rehearsal. Because it gives you
the reality of where you are.
The reality of it. Or if I'm going to wear a certain pair of shoes, I'll start wearing those shoes during rehearsal. Again, to give me a sense of how this character is going to walk. You walk differently when you have slippers on or tennis shoes than you do with a high-heeled 1930s, 1940s shoe. So
you're very physical.
I believe
the physicality is important.
Physicality is important.
Yes.
I feel really strongly in relating to the actors because I know there are some actors that prepare and have everything done in advance, but I want to see what that other actor is going to give me also.
So to keep it fresh.
To play off of them.
Yeah, prepared and loose.
Yeah.
What's the state of theater in Monterey County? What would you say?
Well, as we said a couple minutes ago, there's not as much right now. I think it is really trying to come back. They're remodeling the Golden Bough Theater right now. And I think hopefully the timing of it reopening will be pretty close to restrictions being lifted.
Right.
I just saw on the news this morning that we may still have restrictions through February of 2023, which would be exactly 3 years from the beginning of the pandemic.
Crazy.
But my hope is that by the time the Golden Bough opens, PAC-REP's main facility, that they'll be able to get in there and people will be supportive. And that, again, some of these smaller venues we'll start to see more activity as well.
What do you want to tell people to get involved? Because where we live, it's not hard to get involved. If you want to do something, taking that first step. And what do you tell people to make that first step to get involved in the arts?
What I would say is volunteer at an arts organization. volunteer at the Monterey Museum of Art. All of the local theaters, the bigger theaters, have volunteer ushers. You know, and you get to see the show for free if you usher. So if money is a concern and you don't want to spend a lot of money on a theater ticket, get involved as a volunteer. You know, usually a commitment to be on a board of directors for an arts organization is a financial commitment, a time commitment. But for example, joining an organization like the Monterey County Theater Alliance, their website is theatermonterey.org, and you can go on their website and see what's coming up.
And I guess this also applies to people on the creative end that want to get involved. You know, it's like I wasn't even theater wasn't even on my radar until I started thinking about this, and now I'm thinking, God, this is so much fun, and it's so doable.
Set design, you know, when you combine art and set design, I mean, there's so many elements that are visual.
Plus new writing, you
Right.
know, so it's not a movies are such a high risk business and such a low probability of reality that theater is something that, you know, is an option.
Well, and I think the other thing that people can do is even support local high school theater.
Yeah.
Be in the audience and support these young people who are just getting started and might be interested in a career in theater. And there's some good local high school theater being done as well.
Any last words?
I really want people to be supportive of theater. I think we need the audience to start coming back. And I think if the audience comes back, you'll see more and more people making theater. And I think that's important.
You've been a real booster for the community in terms of knowing that we have an art history here, and keeping that legacy alive, and keeping that legacy just not part of the mythos that brings tourists, but
Right.
as a real living legacy that's part of where we are. I mean,
Absolutely.
a lot
And
of great art's been created here.
My husband and I collect early California art, and we live in art. And I think this kind of goes back to my early days in grade school as being selected to go to special art classes. Your environment is visual, and I think living that way and having the art background has really fulfilled me as a creative person.
Yeah, and we live in a beautiful place, and
Absolutely.
we should have everything we want here.
Absolutely.
A lot of art.
Yes.
A lot of good art.
Yes.
Teresa Del Piero, you're watching YourTown Television. We're out of here.
Thanks, Mark.
We've done it.
Good.